A psychiatrist at Arkham Asylum discovers something terrifying in the pattern of the Joker's laughter. Dr. Elena Marsh had spent 15 years studying criminal psychology. She had interviewed serial killers, mass murderers, and the most disturbed minds the justice system had ever processed. But nothing had prepared her for the sound that echoed through the halls of Arkham Asylum every night at exactly 3 a.m. The Joker's laughter. It wasn't the theatrical cackle the public knew from news footage. This was something different, something that crawled under her skin and nested there like a parasite. Elena had requested his case file 3 months ago, convinced she could crack the code that had eluded every psychiatrist before her. Sitting in her cramped office surrounded by recordings and transcripts, she wasn't so sure. "You're obsessed," her colleague, Marcus said, leaning against the doorframe. "Everyone who tries to understand him ends up the same way." Elena didn't look up from her computer screen. "I'm not trying to understand him. I'm trying to understand the laughter." Marcus frowned. "What's the difference?" "The laughter isn't random," Elena said, finally meeting his eyes. "I've analyzed hundreds of hours of recordings. There's a pattern, a meaning. It's communicating something, and no one's been listening." Marcus shook his head slowly. "Elena, he's insane. The laughter is a symptom, not a message." "That's what everyone assumes," she replied. "But what if we're wrong?" The first breakthrough came at 2 a.m. on a Tuesday. Elena had been playing the recordings on a loop, letting them wash over her like white noise, when suddenly she heard it a rhythm beneath the chaos. The Joker's laughter wasn't just emotional expression. It was structured, almost musical, with variations that repeated under specific circumstances. She pulled up her notes from his therapy sessions, cross-referencing the moments when his laughter changed pitch or intensity. The pattern emerged slowly, like a photograph developing in a dark room. When he laughed high and fast, he was lying. When he laughed low and slow, he was remembering something painful. And when he laughed in that middle register, that unsettling monotone that made the guards nervous, he was telling the truth. Elena requested a session with him the next morning. The interview room was cold and sterile, designed to strip away any sense of comfort or control. The Joker sat across from her, his green hair disheveled, his scarred face arranged in that permanent, grotesque smile. But his eyes were sharp, calculating, watching her every movement. "Dr. Marsh," he said, his voice surprisingly soft. "They tell me you've been listening to my recordings. It's flattering, really." Elena kept her expression neutral. "I'm interested in understanding you better." He laughed high and fast, lying. Elena noted mentally. "Everyone wants to understand me," he continued. "But no one ever asks the right questions." "Then what's the right question?" Elena asked. The Joker leaned forward, his chains rattling against the table. "Why do I laugh?" Elena felt her heart rate increase but kept her voice steady. "That's exactly what I want to know." For a long moment he simply stared at her. Then he laughed again, low and slow, almost mournful. "You know what's funny, Doctor? The world thinks my laughter is madness, chaos, proof that I've lost touch with reality." He paused, tilting his head. "But the truth is far more tragic." "Tell me," Elena said softly. "I laugh because the alternative is screaming," he said, his voice dropping to barely a whisper. "I laugh because somewhere along the way my mind decided that was the only acceptable response to pain. Every horror, every betrayal, every moment of absolute despair, all comes out as laughter." Elena leaned closer. "When did it start?" The Joker-esque expression flickered, something raw and vulnerable passing across. His face before the mask slipped back into place. "There was a day," he said slowly, "when everything I loved was taken from me. I won't bore you with the details. But in that moment, standing in the ashes of my former life, I felt something break inside me. Not my sanity that came later, something deeper. The connection between what I feel and how I express it." He laughed against that middle register, the monotone that made Elena's blood run cold. "Truth, so now," he continued. "When I should cry, I laugh. When I should rage, I laugh. When I should feel nothing at all, I laugh. It's not a choice, Doctor. It's a prison." Elena sat back, processing his words. For years, experts had dismissed his laughter as performance, as manipulation, as evidence of his complete detachment from human emotion. But what if the opposite was true? What if the laughter was proof that he felt everything too deeply, so deeply that his mind had rewired itself to survive? You're saying the laughter's a trauma response, she said. The Joker smiled, genuinely smiled, without the theatrical malice. Now, you're asking the right questions. Over the following weeks, Alina dove deeper into his history. She tracked down sealed records, interviewed former associates, and pieced together the fragments of a life that had been systematically erased. What she found disturbed her more than any of his crimes. Before he was the Joker, he had been someone else entirely. A man with a wife, a career, dreams of a better future. A man who had been broken by circumstances so cruel that his mind had fractured rather than face the reality of his losses. The laughter, she realized, wasn't random at all. Each variation corresponded to a specific emotional state, one he could no longer express normally. High and fast was his way of deflecting, of hiding behind performance. Low and slow was grief, surfacing despite his best efforts to suppress it. In that middle monotone that was his true self speaking, the man buried beneath layers of madness and pain. Alina presented her findings to the asylum's board, arguing for a new approach to his treatment. She was met with skepticism, even hostility. You're humanizing a monster, the director said coldly. That's exactly what he wants, maybe, Alina replied. Maybe understanding him is the first step to helping others before they become like him. She returned to the interview room one final time. The Joker was waiting, his expression knowing. They didn't believe you, he said. It wasn't a question, no, Alina admitted. They didn't. He laughed, low and slow. That's the joke, Doctor. Nobody ever wants to look at the truth. It's easier to call me a monster than to admit that monsters are made, not born. Alina stood to leave, but paused at the door. For what it's worth, she said quietly. I heard you. I understand. The Joker's laughter stopped. For one brief moment, his eyes met hers with something almost like gratitude.